Hello folks, and welcome to the channel, or welcome back. And in this episode we're really going to work on the oven house. And you might have seen the video before where we introduced the work last week. Well, now we're going to do all the work. So let's start. So I'm going to start on the walls, and therefore I need to free up this wall from all this wood. As soon as the wood is removed, I'm going to cut off this tree which is sitting inside this barrel. I will keep this part here, that's fine. But this big old piece here will have to be cut. And then we do a high pressure cleanup on this wall. And I'm quite sure a lot of the chalk will come off. And then we're going to repaint it with a chalk-based paint, Pintura di Calce, in pink. And then the lower part will be in a black tar for the drip. So that should keep me busy for probably the rest of the day. All right, so the wood is cleaned up, and now it's time to cut the trunk. So now it's time to clean the walls with high pressure. Now that the walls are cleaned up, it's ready to paint them. And to paint them, you're going to need paint, of course. You're going to need a paintbrush, and you have to mix the paint very well. But let me tell you first something about the paint and a little bit about the brush, and then we'll start. The paint that I'm using is what we call Pintura di Calce, and that is Italian for chalk-based paint. This is a special paint developed for historical buildings and to be used outside. This paint is colored pink because the farm is supposed to be pink, and I'll explain a little bit more on this once we start painting. And of course, you have to use a brush to apply the paint because the paint is very thick because it's chalk-based. Now, the brush that I'm using is the type of brush that you typically use for putting up wallpaper. So when you put the glue onto the wallpaper, this is the kind of brush, really handy. So this is a 5 by 15 brush, so 15 wide and 5 thick, really handy. And like with any other paint, you really have to make sure that the paint is mixed well. Now, especially this paint, because it's chalk-based and it tends to sink down to the bottom of it. So you want to make sure everything is mixed very well before you apply the paint. Also, there's a color added to it. So if you don't mix it, you may have different shades. So be careful with that. So I'm using a very big mixer because it's very thick paint. So let's mix it and we can start. And you can see how thick that paint is. And this is how it's supposed to be. It's always good to clean your stuff in between because this dye dries real fast. And like with any other paint job, you don't want to paint in the full sun when it's real hot, because that will make the paint dry too fast, and that's not a good idea. So I'm doing it early in the morning, late in the afternoon, or when it's overcast, and right now it's fairly early in the morning, so it's the right time. If the wall is really dry, then you might have to make it wet a bit. It makes it easier to paint. Because it's been like a day and a half ago since I cleaned it. So you probably wonder why I'm painting this wall in pink, and that is just because in the old days, landlords used to own the farms. Farmers did not own typically their farm. And the landlords, they used to paint their farms in a specific color so everybody would know to whom it belongs. Pretty weird, but that's the way it is. Now, as you can see, the way I'm rubbing the paint onto the wall is with long strokes, and I'm going back and forth quite a bit. Now, don't try to use chalk paint on a wall which is not healthy. You have to have a wall that is really in a good condition. So the joints have to be okay, otherwise that is not going to work too well. Now, if you're going to ask me how many square meters I paint a day, that differs a bit depending on how rough the wall is. But typically I do about, let's say about 20 to 30 square meters. Now, if you're wondering how expensive that paint is, it's not cheap, but it's not extremely expensive either, so it's all right. So let me continue and then I'll show you the end result. So if you're going to ask me how long the paint is lasting on the walls, well, that is about 5 to 7 years. It depends where you live. Remember, this is chalk paste paint. Now, the question also often arises, why using chalk-based paint? Well, this farm is heritage. So in the old days, people used to paint their farms with chalk-based paint. And red was an easy color, and pink is like a diluted form of red almost. So that's why they were using it. And why chalk? Well, chalk had a double purpose. Chalk also had the purpose of disinfecting the farm. So even inside the stables, they used to paint the walls white with chalk because that would disinfect the stables. Anyway, I need to continue and stop talking. The entire farm is painted in this chalk-based paint, and that is a lot of work every so often. But meanwhile, I'm finished with the little oven house. So let's have a look on how it looks like, because there's more work to be done on it. So as you can see, we finished the painting early this morning, and now you probably wonder, but what about this part here? I haven't painted it. Well, let me explain to you what I'm going to do with that part. And the lower part will be painted with black, just like I've done right here. And the product that I'm going to use is called black varnish. And for that, I will also have to use a big brush, like this one right here, and a smaller brush like that. I don't know what it's called in your area, but we call this black varnish. Ideally, it should be black tar, but that's hard to get nowadays. Now, I will wear some gloves because this is pretty nasty stuff to get it off your hands. You see also how thick that is. Start with a little bit. So what is the thing about this black stuff we're putting up? The reason is very simple. In the old days, roofs typically didn't have a gutter. And because there was no gutter, water would actually drip down onto the ground and then splash up onto the wall. So in essence, you were getting wet walls. Not a good thing to have. So people were inventive and they put up this black varnish or tar at the lower part of the walls. This is how they did it. Now, of course, it's a little bit more than just protecting the walls. It's also a make-believe that we still have no gutters, although I do have gutters on most of the barns, not all of them. And this stuff paints pretty easy. I'm using a smaller brush to draw the line on top. Some people might mask it off. I'm just going along with the joint. So folks, as you can see, the outside is now finished. The black tar is all along the lower level of the oven house. And now it's just a matter of start to work at the inside. And I'm going to start by cleaning up the area underneath the oven. Those of you that have seen the preview on this video, you probably know that underneath the oven, where the metal door is, we have kind of an area which most likely was used to store wood or to push the ashes in. And that's the area now I need to clean up. Now, initially I was planning to shell blast this whole inside here. But I guess now I'm just going to use a big brush and brush it all off. The stuff comes off pretty easy, so I don't see any need for shell blasting this. So let me start doing this, but I will wear my mask. Oh. Now, talking about dirty jobs, this is a dirty job. So I think this is going to be good enough. I'm always interested to see if there are any finds. But so far I haven't been very lucky in this little oven house here. You can see that the floor is made out of bricks which have been placed flat. Well, we almost got the dirt out, but this is the kind of work I really don't like to do. And so far, I haven't had any finds. Must have been a poor farmer who lived here before. It's not really wet, but it's still a bit humid. But of course, it's lower than the ground outside, so I'm not surprised. And they probably never installed a humidity shield, because they didn't know that in those days. Well, I'm lying. They did actually. Big old buildings, they used some leather or skin from cows underneath the foundations, and that helped of course as well to reduce the humidity or the groundwater to come up. But I don't think the poor farmer could afford that. So alright, so I think this is now good enough. There doesn't need to be more than to put some wood in. So now I'm going to stack some of this good quality cherry wood underneath. All right. So for those of you that might have missed the preview on this oven house and a little bit of the history, this is the oven actually, what you see right here. Let me open that up. And you can see, and the farmers, they used to make bread on the farm themselves because they had a big family, so they used to bake maybe once or twice a week, maybe 10, 15 breads in these ovens. So these ovens were very big. Where I live, that used to be called an ovenmuur or an oven house. That has been in use for a long, long time, from the 17th to in the late 19th century. And then, of course, people went to the bakery and bought their bread. But in those days, that's why they used the oven for that. And underneath, we have a storage area. I suppose they used to scrape out the ashes and then kick it underneath the oven. And you have seen that opening already before, because I already have it cleaned up. And now I filled it up with wood for the oven. We have a little hood on the top here. And there's no chimney inside the oven. So if you look inside the oven, there is just no chimney. It's all closed. So the wood would go in, they would put fire to it, smoke would come out here, fresh air would come in from the bottom, and then the smoke would escape and get behind the hood here into the chimney. The reason for that being is that you don't lose heat. So once the oven was on temperature, when the bricks were white, they would push the ashes aside, and sometimes they would pull it out. They would clean the floor a bit, and then they would put the bread in, and then the door would be closed. Now, if you had a chimney inside, then of course you would lose heat. And this way, they did not lose any heat. So that's a bit of the story. So let me show you what the oven is inside and what I need to do. Not a lot, because I have rebuilt this many moons ago. So we're going to clean out that oven, and we'll make a pizza in it as well, as I promised. I don't know if I'm going to leave the oven door the way it is. It's not really thick material. And I don't know if I'm going to shell blast it or not and then repaint it. Maybe I just leave it the way it is. I think it has more character. But when I was cleaning up this oven house, I found also this door. So this is a very heavy one. And maybe that's the one that should go on. But as you can see, it's not the right size anymore. I might just shell blast this one and keep it aside as an ornament. And here we have the hood, and the hood is a little bit dirty, so let me get some of that dust off. And again, it's pretty rusted, but it's surface rust. And the same thing would go here. Do I want to keep it like this, or do I want to shell blast it and paint it all nicely? And this is a view of the inside of the oven. So I'm just going to put a broom in so you can see how far this goes. Right? And I still haven't reached the end yet. So this is a very, very deep oven. Anyway, I will have to get all the dirt out and then try to clean it a bit on the inside with a vacuum cleaner. And then that oven should be okay, because I already have replaced the tiles on the floor some time ago, because these are tiles that are heat resistant. I made some time ago a scraper to scrape things out. It makes it a bit easier. I have a whole bunch of dirt on the floor anyway, so it doesn't matter. So I made a special 90 degrees corner here so I can properly clean the floor in the oven. Meanwhile, I cleaned up all the cobwebs, and this was really a spider's paradise. There were so many cobwebs in this place, it was unbelievable. But we have a few more things to do. And we still will have to decode the text on this stone here. This stone is in the middle of the oven house, but that's in a few minutes. I cleaned up the outdoor units for the cooling system and heating system on the office space next door, and these happen to be sitting inside the oven house. And now they're running quite smooth. The fuse box is now sorted out. I did try the oven by burning a little bit of wood and see where the smoke would go. And I noticed that the smoke was not really getting into the chimney. A lot of it did, but a lot of it came into the room. So initially I thought, well, let me extend this hood so it can capture the smoke better. But if I were to do that, then I probably would hit it, so it would be in the way. So instead, I used a fan. Now, you're probably going to wonder, well, is this fan not going to burn up? Well, not really, because we'll have hot air and smoke coming out here, but it's also going to suck in clean air because the fan is quite powerful. And that way, it's not going to burn up. So the fan is nothing special. It's the fan of a radiator of a car, and it can have multiple speeds. So I mounted it inside the hood, so it's solid in place, and then we have it hooked up on the side. So the fan is a 12-volt fan, which is powered by a separate power supply, and I can just turn it on. And while I was cleaning up, I came across this old crate from 1963. This must have been a fruit case, because I see an apple on there. And it has some markings where it has been, where it was traded. Somebody put his own name on it or initials on it. They probably stole it from somebody else, this crate. But anyway, I think this is quite nice to keep. All right, so let's start cutting some planks. air units are sitting fairly high up, and underneath it doesn't look all that good with all that tubing. So I'm just going to put some planks in front of it. Nothing really fancy. Now this is looking a lot better, I think. It's not really fancy, but you know, it's nice. I have a little edge here where I can place something on. I'm not going to cover up the top part as I initially planned. But now we need to do something else, which is actually decoding the stone in the middle of the oven house. I have already tried to clean up part of the stone. The lower part isn't, because that's really deteriorated. But on the top part we have some text. Here we have a crest, and it's very hard to see, but it looks like we have a fox right here having something to eat, or having a flower in his hands. I'm not sure, but it's certainly a fox. The tail is right here, and then there is really a crest, and I count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, maybe 7 or 8 crown tips, and that means typically something, but I need to look it up because it typically indicates if it was a duke or a count or a knight or something like that. Not that I'm saying this is a knight.
I am no expert in this, but I did look up certain things, and what I found is the following. A fox with a flower in its paws, sitting upright, is actually a real element in heraldry. It can symbolize cunning, wisdom, or watchfulness. The flower itself might suggest innocence, memory, or beauty. Now, as for the crown, with 8 peaks, that typically signifies a rank. 8 visible points is often associated with a marquis or a nobleman in European heraldic traditions. Now, that can differ from country by country. And the crest may denote a noble or knightly family associated with cunning or loyalty. The fox, with a touch of grace or virtue, which is the flower. So who knows? So please comment on this if you know more on all this.
But I'm not sure that this stone was here from day one. I don't expect anything to be buried underneath here, because it was quite common that stones were reused in the old days because there wasn't a lot around. So this might have been recovered from somewhere else and then placed in here just to, you know, I don't know, decoration or just something comfortable, something flat. But you can see it's been pretty badly damaged. So, but we still see some text on it. So this is the text. I'm going to try to figure out what it is. So DOM, this is certainly something that refers to a funeral stone or somebody who died. I'll have the translation in a few minutes because I don't speak Latin. I can read a little bit of it, but I don't know. This looks like very old Latin on top of it. So I've tried to figure out all these letters with a pencil trace and paper. That didn't work. Then I did it wet. I did it with a bit of chalk. I've tried different things just to see if I could, you know, decode something. And I think we have a little bit of text available to us now that we can see. Shining a flashlight on an angle will work sometimes as well. So let me write down what I see, and then I'm going to try to decode it. This is pretty clear, OUI. Let me try to further decode this, and maybe we can see something.
So the engraved text, when translated and considering the missing parts and only a fraction of the entire stone, reads like this. And I did ask ChatGPT to reconstruct this for me, and this is what I got out of it. To God, the best and greatest, to him and those who are just and pious, blessed and noble in life, as was he. And then a name of somebody, life given, to faith, honor, or family. Now we are most likely looking at a Latin epitaph, not sure what that is, commemorating a noble or virtuous person with missing parts that originally praised the person's virtue, their noble life possible, comparing them to others of good character, giving thanks or commemorate God. And now it was time to put fire in the oven, and of course I did not have my microphone on, so I'm doing a bit of a kickstart here with a burner, so it helps to get the fire going. Otherwise you have to put paper in or something else to get it going. And I'm using small pieces of wood, as you can see, to begin with. Wood which is extremely dry, so you don't have a lot of smoke. And I'm just, giving a bit of a turbo start, as I say. But now, once it's burning very well. So now I'm pushing it back a little bit because it's a little bit too much in the front of the oven. And I'm just giving it another kickstart, and now I'm gonna let it burn for a while. Now, of course, I removed the kickstart, and here you see the stones getting white on the top. This is exactly what you need to have. The stones have to be white, then the oven is, as I understood, on temperature, but the proof will be in eating the pudding, or I should say in eating the pizza in a few minutes.
So here's our pizza, nothing really special. I'm just going to add some mozzarella to it. I mean, I don't know if I would be sure that the oven is working perfectly, then I probably would put some more stuff on the pizza. But as you can see, I'm not really a good cook. Probably Italians will go crazy when they see this. But it is mozzarella di bufalo. I have to agree to that. So hopefully this will work like a champ in the oven. And if not, oh well. So be it, it was a good try. Now, I know, guys, this is supposed to be a round pizza, but okay. But it doesn't really matter. I mean, and we'll close the door. And I can already smell the pizza, and you can see the sides of the crust. It started to bake, which is good. So I'm going to close the door and let it go. And here it is. It looks okay. A little bit burnt on that side, but the crust seems to be okay. I guess I will be the guinea pig, but hopefully this is quite all right. And it feels all right. Nice and juicy as well. Now, I did not make the crust, okay? It came out of a package. This is really good. Nice and juicy. And I'll see you in my next video, while I'm enjoying my pizza.